Joining us now is broadcaster Edward Adu, who says cyclists just clog up the roads, and cyclist and broadcaster Matt Barbette, who said we should be encouraging cycling to improve our health. Good morning to you. Let's start off with you, Matt, then, because you want to sort of fly the flag for cyclists. It's environmentally friendly. But we see there in the report, don't we, there are those concerns about how cyclists and motorists interact and making sure that everyone's kind of considerate that it's happened safely.
Yeah, hi, Charlotte. Well, I'm both a driver and a cyclist, is the first thing to say. So this idea there's a battle between two tribes is not entirely true. And most cyclists I know also do drive cars. It's not cyclists clogging up the roads, it's cars and lorries clogging up the roads. And they're way more dangerous. More people die because of cars and lorries than do because of cyclists. And let's be honest here, who is the most vulnerable road user? Well, it should be a hierarchy of responsibility, with pedestrians the most vulnerable and the people in huge lorries the least vulnerable. So cyclists should be protected. It is safer to ride two abreast, because if you think about it, when cyclists are riding behind each other, it's much longer for a vehicle to overtake. If they're riding two abreast, it's a shorter distance to go around them. And by the way, the highway code also says you must give them 1.5 meters space. You should overtake cyclists as you would any other vehicle. So 1.5 meters, if you can, pull onto the other side of the road and go around them that way. And if they're two abreast, it's going to be over and done with more quickly than if they're riding single file.
Ed, what have cyclists ever done to you?
Loads of things. Let me give you one point. I was driving along Vauxhall Bridge Road back in 2013. There was a cyclist in front of me, and he wasn't sort of riding straight. So I tried to get his attention, and he stopped in the middle of Vauxhall Bridge Road and swore at me. And I was enraged. I thought, how can a cyclist act in such an inappropriate manner? This led me to write a blog about it for Huffington Post. And I suggested at the time that we should have a cycling registration scheme. Now, I'm not saying all cyclists are sort of morally wrong and they're rude and they swear all the time. But what I'm saying is there needs to be some kind of etiquette. No, I'm not saying all cyclists are rude. What I'm saying is there need to be etiquette with cyclists. Some cyclists think that they rule.
There is etiquette, but there needs to be more etiquette amongst drivers, because when a driver hits a cyclist, chances are the cyclist is going to get really hurt.
Come on, man.
I'm not blaming all the drivers. Ed, let me ask you, Ed, have you ever ridden a bike on the road? Have you ever ridden a bicycle on the road?
Yeah. Loads of times.
You know how intimidating it can feel, don't you?
Listen, it's not about intimidation. It's about respect on both sides. But again, the point is, some cyclists think, especially in London, they think that they own the roads, and they don't. It should be the highway should be for everyone, and for everyone to respect.
Yeah, I mean, Matt,
we're entirely in agreement there.
Do you think there is an issue with some cyclists giving cyclists a bad name, in a sense? Because, you know, we've all been there where you've seen the ones that will go through a red light, that will sort of cycle across a zebra crossing or something, you know, that actually they're making the most of how they're able to nip in and out of the traffic, which is putting themselves at risk. And sometimes people are thinking, well, it's because of that they then get a bad reputation.
No, I think, Charlotte, I think there's a small minority of all road users who give all road users a bad name. We've all seen bad drivers. That doesn't mean every driver is bad. And it's the same with cyclists. Of course, there are some cyclists who break the rules, but the vast majority are the ones just trying to look after themselves. And I think there's a bigger picture here. There's a bigger story in that they are much more vulnerable than people in cars. People in cars get frustrated because think they're being slowed down by cyclists. I had it only a couple of days ago. I mean, Ed's referring to an example in 2013. 2 days ago, I was riding with a group of cyclists, and we had close passes several times during that 2-hour ride, because people get frustrated thinking that you shouldn't be riding two abreast, because a lot of drivers do not know what the highway code says, and quite rightly, you should ride two abreast. It makes it better for everyone.
Yeah, Matt, just explain that to us. Hang on, sorry, Ed, hold on a second. Matt, just explain that to everybody. How does that work? So if you're in single file, why is that sort of more dangerous than riding two abreast? What's the sort of theory behind that one?
Well, think about it, Adel. So you've got 8 cyclists riding single file. Then you've got a long line that's 8 bicycles long. If they're riding two abreast, then halve it. It's only 4 bicycles long, so it's a shorter distance. for a vehicle to overtake.
That's a big group of cyclists for anyone to overtake safely, though, isn't it? I was explaining earlier on that over the weekend, I was behind cyclists waiting for the opportunity to pass them safely, and the car behind me was obviously getting frustrated and was then attempting to overtake me and the cyclists. And the issue is, if there aren't sort of safe opportunities to be able to overtake, that drivers are going to do things like that, which is going to cause more danger.
Well, you just have to wait. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. You have to be respectful. You have to be respectful of other road users. Let's not forget that if you're overtaking cyclists, let me just make this point. If you're overtaking cyclists, you need to give them 1.5 meters. Don't just squeeze past because they're in single file. You need to give them plenty of space, because if you do squeeze past, it's incredibly intimidating. It's dangerous. I've been hit by wing mirrors.
So, Matt, you're saying you're along a country lane, you're on a holiday bank holiday, you've got the kids in the back, one of them needs to use the loo, the dog's barking off, and then suddenly you come across 8 cyclists who are riding abreast. Now, you think you've just got to all stay in line. Shouldn't the onus then be on the cyclist going, I've got a queue of cars behind me. I think we should probably let them pass and tuck in and come to the pass. Surely that's got to be in the highway code, otherwise it's just ridiculous.
But it is in the highway code. It says never ride more than 2 abreast and ride in single file on narrow or busy roads and when riding round bends. So the highway code at the moment is suggesting that you go single file when it needs to, if there's a narrow road on a bend or when it's busy.
Well, is that happening out there, Ed? Are you?
Yeah, it does happen. It does happen. People are aware enough. They're not going to willingly hold up cyclists, hold up cars behind them. They will move out of the way. But it's when they don't have to do that, when it is safer to ride 2 abreast, that drivers are getting frustrated because they don't realise that actually is a safe way of doing it.
OK, guys, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us.